Cracking Dennis Rader's mind, the BTK killer. Welcome to The Most Evil, where we delve into the minds of history's most notorious serial killers. Follow us as we investigate the dark and twisted mind of one of America's most prominent serial killers and discover the long-lasting impact of his acts of violence on the community as we enter into the alarming case of Dennis Rader, notoriously known as the BTK killer or bind, torture, kill killer. A time before Dennis Rader's notoriety as the BTK killer, his early years were marked by a visible consistency mixed with subtly disturbing signs. Born on March 9, 1945, in Pittsburgh, Kansas, Rader was the oldest of four sons in the household of William and Dorothea Rader. Rader's childhood showed glimpses of the darkness that would later consume him. Even though Rader's family seemed normal on the outside, he showed concerning conduct at a young age. He was noted for his tendency to deceive and take advantage of people around him. He also showed an interest in animal abuse. These early signs pointed to the unpredictable feelings that were fermenting inside Rader's head. As he matured, Rader's behavior became increasingly erratic and disturbing. He engaged in petty crimes and acts of vandalism, foreshadowing the violent tendencies that would manifest later in life. Despite his outward appearance of normalcy, Rader harbored dark fantasies and desires that he struggled to suppress. Upon graduating from high school, Rader enlisted in the United States Air Force, serving for 4 years before being honorably discharged in 1970. His time in the military exposed him to violent imagery and instilled in him a rigid sense of hierarchy, further fueling his twisted fantasies. After leaving the military, Rader returned to civilian life, where he married his wife, Paula Dietz, and started a family. Despite outward appearances of stability, Rader's inner turmoil continued to simmer beneath the surface. He maintained a facade of normalcy, holding down a steady job and participating in church and community activities, all while harboring dark secrets and twisted desires. Throughout his adult life, Rader struggled to reconcile his outward appearance of respectability with the darkness that lurked within. He yearned for power and control, obsessing over violent fantasies that grew increasingly vivid and disturbing over time. In the years leading up to his first known murders in the 1970s, Rader's inner turmoil reached a boiling point, driving him to seek an outlet for his violent impulses. It was during this time that Rader's descent into darkness began in earnest, ultimately culminating in a reign of fear that would leave a permanent scar on the community of Wichita, Kansas, and the annals of true crime history. Between 1974 and 1991, Rader terrorized the community of Wichita, Kansas, with a series of brutal murders that left 10 innocent people dead. His victims, ranging from men, women, and children, were chosen at random, with Rader deriving sick pleasure from the fear and suffering he inflicted. The BTK killer's reign of terror struck fear into the hearts of residents, earning him a reputation as one of the most elusive and dangerous serial killers in American history. Dennis Rader's method of operation as the infamous BTK killer was marked by a disturbing blend of calculation, deception, and sadism. His crimes were meticulously planned and executed with a chilling sense of precision, reflecting his obsession with power and control. Rader's modus operandi typically began with meticulous stalking and surveillance of his victims. He would carefully select his targets, often choosing individuals or families who lived in quiet suburban neighborhoods where he believed he could strike undetected. Rader would spend weeks or even months observing his victims' routines, meticulously planning every aspect of his attack. Once he had selected his target, Rader would break into their homes under the cover of darkness, using various methods to gain entry, such as cutting telephone lines or disabling alarm systems. Once inside, he would lie in wait, often for hours or even days, until the perfect moment presented itself. When the time was right, Rader would launch his attack with ruthless efficiency, using a combination of physical force, threats, and intimidation to overpower his victims. He would bind and torture them, reveling in their fear and suffering, before ultimately carrying out his twisted fantasies of murder. Following the commission of his crimes, Rader would often taunt law enforcement and the media with cryptic messages and clues, fueling speculation and adding to the sense of terror and uncertainty that gripped the community. His brazen acts of communication, including letters, poems, and packages sent to local media outlets, served to amplify his notoriety and prolong the agony of his victims' families. Despite his meticulous planning and efforts to evade detection, Rader's arrogance and desire for recognition ultimately proved to be his downfall. His need for attention led him to send a series of communications to local media and authorities in 2004, ultimately leading to his arrest and conviction. Dennis Rader's methods are an eerie reminder of the depths of human greed and the potential for evil that exists inside each of us, as recorded in the histories of true crime events. His reign of evil made a lasting impression on Wichita, Kansas, and is an eerie warning of the dangers that may be found in the darkest corners of the human mind. One of the biggest and most thorough investigations into the killings committed by the BTK killer has ever been conducted in Kansas. Law enforcement organizations put up great effort to find the elusive serial murderer, using psychological profiling and cutting-edge forensic methods to locate their target. Driven by a will to see Rader through to justice, the search went on despite many leads and false starts. With his spectacular apprehension, Dennis Rader's decades-long era of evil as the BTK killer came to an end, providing closure to the people of Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. Rader's arrogance and need for attention proved to be his biggest mistake in the end, despite his careful preparation and efforts to avoid finding out. When Rader reappeared in 2004 after years of silence and sent many messages to local media and authorities, the investigation made significant progress. Rader described his crimes in frightening detail and gave vivid accounts of the agony he had caused his victims in these letters. He took more and more outrageous risks out of his craving for attention and fame, which eventually gave law police the leads they needed to find him. The key to Rader's capture turned out to be one of his communications, a floppy disk transmitted to a nearby television station. Rader was unaware that the disk had metadata connected to a PC at the Christ Lutheran Church in Wichita, where he was the church council president. With the use of this vital piece of information, detectives were able to follow the conversations back to Rader's residence, which finally resulted in his arrest on February 25, 2005. A mass of police officers greeted Rader as he came from his Park City residence, and they swiftly subdued and safely arrested him. Following his capture, Rader gave detectives a detailed account of his crimes, giving them a blueprint of his deranged mental state and the horrible deeds he had inflicted upon his victims. One of the biggest and most thorough manhunts in American history came to a close with his arrest, which shocked the country. Dennis Rader's apprehension was a grim reminder of the value of tenacity and commitment in the fight for justice. Rader made every effort to avoid being discovered, but in the end his conceit and thirst for fame proved to be his undoing, giving the victims and their families some closure and guaranteeing that he would eventually be held accountable for his horrible deeds. Psychologists have long been obsessed with Dennis Rader's deranged mental state, and have endeavored to disentangle the intricate network of circumstances that led him to carry out such horrific deeds. His deep-seated need for approval and attention, along with his fixation with domination and control, presented a picture of a seriously troubled person driven by sinister impulses. Dennis Rader's legacy is one of infamy and terror, permanently altering both the history of true crime and the city of Wichita. His story generated an extensive amount of interest and controversy, provoking talks about the definition of evil and the boundaries of human immorality. Even now, Rader's acts have a lasting effect on the lives of his victims and their families. His time of evil left wounds that would never completely heal, acting as a haunting warning of the danger that can be found in a person's deepest, darkest regions of the mind. We're left feeling extremely terrified and shocked as we wrap up our investigation into Dennis Rader's life and actions. His experience serves as an eerie reminder of the evil that resides inside every one of us and the necessity of facing the demons of our past. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content on true crime and psychological analysis. Remember to stay vigilant, and until next time, stay safe.